Welcome to Monarchist Minute. I'm Victor Smith. Tonight, we will discuss our national soccer team advancing the round of 16 by beating Iran 1-0. Hershey native Christian Pulisic scored the game-winning goal. In addition, we will be discussing protests in Iran, China, and the Netherlands over things like COVID policy and, well, the Netherlands one is a little rocky. The Iranian protest is an anti-governmental protest. And then, in British royal family news, Lady Susan, the godmother of Prince William, resigned from her post after a staffer complained of racism.
Wasn't even a staffer.
A trailer of a new documentary filmed by Netflix on Prince Harry and Princess Meghan was put up on the internet. And the timing of which is a little suspect because the Prince of Wales is in Boston as we speak at the time of this recording, meeting with President Biden. So we will get to that first. The Prince of Wales is in Boston for an environmentalist event. President Biden is meeting with him now. This is the president's first meeting with a member of the British royal family in person.
Didn't he meet the Queen? Didn't Biden meet the Queen that one time?
That may have been when he was vice president.
But you said this is his first meeting with the royal family in person, so it kind of implied, like, in general.
The Queen is dead, so she is no longer part of the royal family, Charles.
Oh.
I mean, yeah.
Okay, that made zero sense.
That's like saying if I died, you never met anyone who's a part of my family. I mean, that's a little.
But
that's a dark train of thought.
Yeah. Can we go back to the subject at hand?
I agree.
But anyway, hang on a second. You said that it was a staffer that complained about Miss Hester. We're going to get to that.
We're not there yet. Hold the question.
All right.
Man, like, what was it, like 30 seconds before we got off topic? That's a record for us.
Gotta love it.
This is the peak Monarchist Minute experience.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
And also joining us
someone make a speed run for Monarchist Minute off-topic world record.
And also joining us tonight is our resident historian Vicent, who I believe just completed his master's thesis. Vicent, how are you?
He
made it to the audience.
Oh, he went to the audience?
He's been chilling in the audience.
Apologies, I thought he was up. here. Okay.
Yeah,
well,
no,
he was, but now you know what? Okay, guys.
You know what? Let's just pop the bot out and pop it back in and restart from the top.
Yeah.
No, let's not do that. We can just keep going. We're live.
Wait, we're ending this fast?
If you would like to join us live on Monarchist.
No, don't do that, Charles. Okay, so let's get back on topic here and discuss the prince's visit to Boston. Another ancillary part of his visit is he and Princess Catherine went to a Boston Celtics game, and the interim head coach of the Boston Celtics did not recognize them in his post-game press conference. He was asked, what was it like to have members of the royal family at the game? And he was like, Jesus, Mary, and Joseph?
He's a very based Catholic, and I'm very happy that he's kind of sticking up for, Catholics in America, especially that way.
I'm very.
Well, that comment was a little like he had
It
to have
is.
known about the existence of the British royal family at the gate.
That's that's true.
To be fair, Boston is very, very Irish, and the Irish and the
That's the
British
other part.
royals.
Yeah, it's the Celtics. I mean, come on.
I mean, yeah, I'm very torn because
Celtics,
while I respect the man for his piety, I'm also upset with him for that comment. I'm very torn with the comment.
Oh, well, actually, while you guys continue to discuss, I will have something to prove that the Irish in Boston were not so anti-British as they used to be.
Oh, boy.
Oh, Lord.
Oh,
Please,
God.
please.
Yeah, we're just going to add another segment to our podcast.
Just like about...
Wait,
Please.
this better not be some Jacobite reference.
Actually, it isn't. Hold on. Actually, I don't know if it was
Oh.
Boston, but it was the Irish in North America. Hold on, I need to get to it. This is from an excerpt from Puritan's Empire, Catholic Perspective on American History, from TumblrHouse.com, available from all fine things. Hold on. You guys can keep talking while I find it. It's a pretty big book.
Sponsored right now?
I
No, we're
wish.
not sponsored.
We should get a
We are
sponsor.
not.
We are sponsored by NordVPN.
Sponsored by Audible. Try code Monarchist Minute for 30% off of the next free
That is
book.
not a real code, ladies and gentlemen. It's not a real code.
This video is sponsored by Established Titles. Get a fake lord.
No,
Get
we
a
are
fake
not
lord
associating
title.
with Established Titles. We are not associating.
Okay, apparently there's a big thing on established titles. Oh, hi, Darth.
Off
We all
topic.
agreed to invite Darth up, right?
We already have
Everyone say
7
yes.
people up here.
Yeah, I don't care. Just say yes.
We lost Nikolai.
Yes.
So it's fine.
Okay, everyone say yes. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
yes.
no. Okay, but here's the thing. Apparently there's a controversy with established titles. I don't know anything about that. But if established titles ever comes to us asking for a sponsorship, I will personally go over to wherever these people are from and say, "No, you Republican plebs."
Okay, so I
I thought he was going to advocate for domestic violence.
No. Okay, so no. Okay,
That's
so here we
great.
go. Hold on. So
no.
I have the thing to prove the Irish weren't so anti-royalist as they used to be. Okay. New York remained under British occupation a bustling port as a center of loyalism, as Tories from continental-held areas sought refuge there. A number of loyalist regiments were quartered there, one of which was the Catholic Volunteers of Ireland, led by Lord Waldwin. On March 17th, 1799, they held the first St. Patrick's Day parade, at which was sung this song. Success of the shamrock and all those who wear it by honor their portion wherever they go. May riches attend them and stores of good claret, how to employ them, sure none better know. Every foe surveys them with terror, and every silt petticoat wishes them nearer. So Yankee keep off, or you'll soon learn your error. For Paddy shall prostrate lay every foe. This day, but the year, I can't rightly determine. St. Patrick the vipers to chase from the land. Let's see if, like him, we can't sweep out the vermin who dare against the sons of the Shamrock to stand. Hand in hand, like carols and chorus, as long as the blessing of Ireland hang o'er us, the crest of rebellion shall tremble before us, like brothers while we thus march hand in hand. Now that is very based, but the Irish used to be very nice, the Irish and British used to like each other. But
hang on a second, I'm curious. What's the controversy with established titles?
Okay,
I have no idea. I just know there is one.
I got
Established title. Okay, go ahead.
All right. So established titles, their whole business was, you buy land and they'll give you a lordship that only they can recognize. Now, the controversy starts because one, there's no proof that they're actually planting trees, because if you buy a lordship, they said they'll plant a tree. Well, the controversy is they're not planting any trees in the areas you pay for. And another thing, they're not even from Scotland. They're in Hong Kong.
Hong Kong? That's like a little bit away. That's a little bit off the beaten trail to Glasgow.
It basically seems like a scam.
Yes, that's a scam.
It's a scam, and it's been blowing up recently because I forget his name, but a YouTuber made a video on it, and then all these other YouTubers like some ordinary gamers and the Korean backed out of their deals and apologized for sponsoring them. So, yeah, it's been recent.
And even if it was completely on the level, just like saying, yeah, I am a noble now because I bought a 1 foot by 1 foot square tile of land is like,
which is idiot, and now and which is technically legal in Scotland. In Scotland, if you own a basically 1 square foot by like 1 foot by 1 foot, whatever it is, you are technically considered not a lord but a laird. And those people just like completely made up those titles, and which absolutely disgusts me to no end, as I am sure it disgusts our resident historian Vicent. Good evening.
he's muted.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he's probably just listening to us.
Our other resident historian, well, not historian, philosopher Darth, I guess he can say something because he.
Oh, Vicent is unmuted.
Vincent.
I was distracted for a moment. Was
we're ranking established
we
titles
were
for
talking
selling
about-
You got
land and
called.
claiming you're a noble now.
Oh yeah, well, I can't be convinced to care about it. It seems like kind of a nonsense controversy. I didn't plan on buying from them one way or the other, so I mean, it kind of reminds me of the Lunar Embassy, if you've ever heard of that.
Yeah, I own the moon now.
Yeah, you can own 1 square foot of property in Scotland. You can also own a couple of acres on the moon. Who cares? It's just something that people waste their money on, I guess.
You can become a quite literal Lord of the Flies.
No, I mean, for me, it's just, before this controversy, I just didn't like established titles because, the idea of, nobility, it's supposed to be like tied to the soil and not, I own a random square foot that I'm never going to see with my own eyes, probably even in a picture. Therefore, I noble now. It's like, dude.
But also,
please.
nobility comes with the responsibility of being defenders of the land, being the ones that sally forth to defend the nation, defend the crown and realm. That's why fiefs were given out to men of the warrior caste, was to provide them enough land to get income off of, to provide for their arms, and to be a ready officer corps when the crown calls. Like, say, you can kind of like a count or a baron. They'd essentially be like junior officers in like a modern military, because they could raise their own. They raise their own men at arms. They keep a small contingent of men at arms at all times, and they themselves are that more elite warrior aristocracy. But also, I was told this just about 20 minutes ago, but another World War II vet died today, and it was my great uncle. He passed away last night in his sleep. He was 90 years old.
I'm so sorry to hear.
All right.
Remind us to put a requiem for him at the end of the episode.
Yes.
Right. So, I just wanted to fact check this with you, Vicent, because I had made a claim that the Prince of Wales is the first living member of a royal family that President Biden has met. Is this true?
Most likely, but that's a little bit outside of my area of expertise.
Okay.
I haven't heard otherwise. Let me just put it that way.
All right. All right. So let's get in. Does anyone else have anything to say on the topic of the Prince of Wales shipping up to Boston?
No, I don't know anything about it.
I mean, the concept of European princes visiting America, I mean, that's actually was pretty common more in the 20th century than it is today, but it still shouldn't honestly be written down in the history books, besides like as a footnote. Like, say, Crown Prince Wilhelm of Germany, he was actually going to be visiting America in 1914, but then that got cut off because of World War I.
This is Wilhelm III.
He would have been Wilhelm III. He would have been reigning. Kaiser Wilhelm II, when he was a prince, he visited America, and then again as Kaiser, and he actually was good friends with Theodore Roosevelt. I think some Russian princes came out, especially during the Old West days. Like there's accounts of boyars and Russian Grand Dukes coming to America. So it's like it's not uncommon. It's happened.
And of course one of the biggest and most important ones was the Dom Pedro from Brazil, Emperor of Brazil, visiting during the World Fair and meeting with President Ulysses S. Grant. That was one of the most important visits.
But a lot of people forget how good relations Russia and the U.S. had during the 19th century. It usually gets overshadowed by post-revolutionary relations.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's funny.
Southerner, I really like Ulysses.
I think it was Tsar Alexander II. He actually deployed a garrison to San Francisco during the American Civil War, so that way more Union troops could go fight the Confederacy, because he was also an abolitionist.
I believe he also offered volunteers, but Lincoln turned them down, so there quote-unquote wouldn't be foreign soldiers involved in the war.
Which, is not... I mean, given we drafted all the immigrants anyways, I mean...
Which I was about to say, circles back to the Irish being on every side of every conflict.
Yeah.
We will fight them.
The Times is a pretty good example of Irish fighting each other.
The what?
The Troubles.
Oh, I thought you said the Times. I was like, what the...
Yeah, no, not the Times. The Troubles.
Yeah, the Troubles... We don't
I'm
talk
having
about
my...
that.
The reason I'm not talking right now is because my mic is kind of having issues.
Yeah, we heard.
My computer's having issues.
Yeah, I was about to say, Limbo, keep your mic muted, but if you can't keep it muted, then...
You're giving off
there we go.
background noise.
There we go.
I wish I was on my Blue Yeti mic, but I mean, invest in a good mic, people.
With a flex.
I have a cheap mic that I bought from Amazon like 2 years ago.
I tolerate resistance.
I'm literally just chilling.
Snowball Ice by Blue.
What's the next segment?
Yeah,
The next segment is Herry and Meghan, the controversy surrounding their new Netflix documentary, which they got paid handsomely for, by the way. The trailer to which basically depicts them in a good light and the Prince and Princess of Wales in a bad light. That's all that needs to be said.
My
God. By the way, this is something that I really like about Charles III. He just stripped all the titles, everything off of Harry and Meghan as soon as he took the crown, because he doesn't tolerate traitors to the royal family, which is based.
Based.
We're still waiting for it to fulfill his ultimate destiny, though.
Dissolve Parliament.
Yes.
Yeah.
Destiny.
I kind of like democracy, actually. I like democracy, actually. You gotta slow that down. You gotta slow the anti-democratic rhetoric on this monarchist minute down.
You don't have to slow the anti-democratic rhetoric down, but when the person who is in control of the podcast and editing everything is very anti-democratic.
Very based, Charles. Very based.
Yeah, very based, Charles. Right.
So, I assume there is no reaction to what Harry and Meghan did.
Just
I haven't seen it,
with the
so I'm
anti-democratic
not gonna
remarks.
make any assumptions on what the documentary is or what the trailer is, because I haven't seen it. But I don't.
As far as I'm concerned, they're just random civilians now.
Yeah. They're another American celebrity on the internet. Like, I listened to one of their podcasts and I was just falling asleep. So I think this new docu-series is just going to be the same thing. Just they have cameras now.
Yeah, pretty much.
Just
Monarchist
I have this to say: they were bumped down from the second estate to the fourth estate, where they belong.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right. So let us go. Unless anyone has any objections.
Nope.
No objections.
No, sir.
All right. Well, Will, I assume Will is going to correct me on this, but a staffer came out and said that the Prince of Wales's grandmother,
Godmother. It's his godmother.
godmother, excuse me, not mother, godmother. Thank you. I don't know why I said mother. The Lady Diana has been dead for many years.
And it's also not a staffer. She represents a charity.
Okay, so a charity representative claimed that the godmother of Prince William was racist towards her. That particular lady was forced to resign from her duties as part of what is called the firm by insiders to the British royal family.
Now, I gotta say, why the comments that Lady Hussey made was a little distasteful and not very tactful. This woman who made the accusations is clearly a drama queen who is milking it for all it's worth.
I honestly, to give my opinion, first of all, she's an old, rich English lady. There's bound to be a bunch of racists among them. I'm surprised she didn't just turn her away. Like, that is honestly not a bad thing, because she's an old lady. But even disregarding that, if you see how the charity representative was dressed, she was absolutely not dressed in a fashion to appear in front of the royal family, in my opinion at least. And so, yeah, if you saw someone, walking by dressed like they're homeless, you'd kind of want to understand why they're entering, was it Buckingham or Windsor?
She was supposed to be dressed in traditional West African attire, although I have also seen comments on while working with the official Twitter that West Africans say that it looks like a Western appropriation of West African culture and attire. And basically, this woman has also accused the royal family of domestic abuse in the past. And so to say she has a bias and agenda is probably an understatement.
Yeah, I think it's just another thing for the Twitter account with the blue X that we will not be mentioning by name to go on and ramble about how bad the royal family is.
Yeah. I hate that account.
We all hate that account.
Does anyone...
Honestly, I'm quite fond of their account because the way they pick low-hanging fruit makes my job easy when it comes to targeting the
Okay, well, okay. Does anyone have any objections to does anyone have any final thoughts on this other controversy surrounding the British royal family?
Any drama surrounding the British royal family is invalid.
I mean, I'm just surprised we've gone through 3 topics in 23 minutes.
Yeah, we're doing great. We're doing great. The World Cup's going to take up most of our time.
No, it's not.
I want it to be that way.
It's an invented controversy, and honestly, people will forget about it in 5 minutes.
Like that Meghan interview.
Yeah.
What Meghan interview?
By what we see about the British press in regards to the royal family is the British press loves to invent drama about the royal family because drama about the royal family sells like hotcakes.
It's just like news about the president over here in the States. It's just media.
Right. And I actually asked that question facetiously. I knew which Meghan interview was brought up. I just wanted to make a point. Anyway, let us, if there's no objections, I believe we have some protests to discuss.
Oh, yeah.
My opinion on the protests is basically, I think the protesters should overthrow the Chinese government and then establish Chinese democracy.
So what
Honestly,
in China, at least this is what I've seen in other channels. especially on
I mean, it's
Telegram,
basically
is
impossible
the-
for the Chinese to restore their monarchy. So the next best thing for me is a democracy.
So like with the protests, like the protests are like they're bloated by Western media. They're not actually as large as a lot of
Oh
people
boy.
are saying.
Oh boy.
Yeah, they like there's a lot of Telegram channels about the protests that show like a small crowd of protesters followed up by a lot of people that just don't care and are just getting like there's a lot of cases of people literally ordering pizza and like getting it delivered at the protest. So it's kind of like a half-hearted effort. So a lot of these crowds are small. A lot of them are bloated by Western media to try to think that the CCP is collapsing, which honestly I think right now, ever since Xi Jinping did his like mock coup to silence any dissidents within the CCP and root out the potential wannabe coups, honestly I think the CCP is in a stronger position now than they previously were.
Honestly, as much as I love the idea of the CCP collapsing, people have been saying it's been due to hit economic collapse or mass social unrest for months now, and so honestly, I'm just tired of basically us keeping on hearing this and not actually seeing any results from it.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And
So,
meanwhile,
Don't blackpill me, please.
meanwhile,
It's
in
not really blackpilling if it's the truth of reality.
Yeah.
meanwhile in the Netherlands, perhaps Kaiser Bob would be the best person to explain both.
All right, so the Netherlands, this has been going back for months now because the Dutch government has decided to take over a bunch of private farmlands away from the ownership of civilians and put it under their control. And currently, the farmers are organizing a massive protest in the Netherlands, and I just sent a tweet in one of our channels here, and it has a video of one part of the protest where the Dutch police brought a bulldozer because the farmers brought their farm equipment there. They brought the bulldozer and decided to shove a tractor aside in front of these protesters. And then here comes the Dutch police, go straight into the protesters, beating them up. Like, these are peaceful protesters. They beat them up and they shove them into black vans. Like, you see this
NSA
in like
style.
China and Iran, but this is the Netherlands, a Western democracy.
That's because all that matters.
Technically it's a constitutional monarchy, but
Unimportant.
You get what I'm saying.
It still is like in air quotes a liberal democracy, but as soon like the things that go with liberal democracy is if the government passes a law, it becomes totalitarian in enforcement, and if the government says that they're going to take and use farmers' land because the parliament says that they can do that, they will do that, and no matter what the protesters do, the parliament will use their power to silence the crowd that quote unquote lost in their democracy.
What?
That's
What
the
are they
pervasive
even?
nature of democracy.
What are they even using the land for? Last I heard, they just took it because they're meeting
environmental
EU goals.
Environmental protocols. That's why they took it.
How can they just confiscate someone's livelihood and private land for that?
The Netherlands,
domain, our own government, our own
Let me tell you,
eminent domain. Our government, our city and
it's a real
state
thing.
governments do it all the time to build sports stadiums. And the interstate highway system pour out a lot of neighborhoods.
Did Qatar
Just
use a bunch of? Never mind.
Slaves, yeah, but we'll get to that.
But like things like eminent domain, as we were saying, like eminent domain pretty much means that you don't actually own the land you're on, you rent it until the state says otherwise. Which, you know, if it was like a based regime, I wouldn't say that that would be necessarily bad. but the fact that it's a non-based regime, it's bad. If it's not my guys seizing and redistributing land, then it's not based.
It just looks, in the Netherlands especially, just like two wolves and a lamb voting on who's being dinner.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, that's how they've always been. Like,
of course.
I mean, that's how all democracies are in the end.
And just a brief note before we get to Iran, because because I sort of want to subsume all of Iran into that World Cup discussion. There were protests a few weeks ago in the East Wall neighborhood of Dublin, Ireland, over immigrants being housed there by the Irish government while Irish people sleep in the streets.
Yeah, that's look.
Dumb.
No, I mean, here's the thing. Okay, yes, those who are prosperous do have an obligation to help out those who are not prosperous. But if you can't take care of your own, then inviting more people in isn't necessarily going to solve the problem. I mean, yeah, I guess if you're inviting in some mathematical genius who's going to come up with this economic plan that's going to get everyone a great paying job and not destroy the social fabric of society, libertarians are great at the first point, not really great at the second point. But
I won't even say libertarians are that great at the first point.
Well, I mean, you know what? Yeah.
Libertarians are cringe. Libertarians are cringe.
Not a lot of high level thinking. Not a lot of. God.
I mean, I don't know.
95% of everything wrong with the modern world can go back to a libertarian.
Honestly, like I said earlier today, blame the French Revolution.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
I don't know.
The French
Libertarians.
Revolution.
We can blame a heck of a lot more things than just the French Revolution, but
Well, honestly, like what you're seeing in the world in a lot of places is, even in the places that are like quote unquote more conservative, birth rates are kind of naturally declining, kind of like a self-correction in a lot of places in the world. Like Africa, their population growth has drastically declined. Like they went from an average birth rate of 7 to 4 per woman, which is still a lot, and they're still going to be doubling their population, but it's drastically down from what it previously was. India, their population incline is also plateauing right now, kind of due to natural effects, not because of any artificial outside actions. I mean, I'm a subscriber to cyclical history, so I kind of see this as like a natural reset of the environment, and I don't think like many globalists want to see it go to like 11 billion bug men on the Earth, but I doubt even the world is meant for 8 billion that we're currently at right now.
I think Charles would disagree with that statement because Charles is very pro-natal, and based off a conversation we once had in the High Council,
who is pro-natal?
He's very opposed to one of
pro-natal?
the reasons that birth rates are dropping.
Well, I mean, here's my position. I mean, I think that to say that, you know, we're at risk of like overpopulating ourselves to the point of like depleting everything we have. I mean, one way or another, I think God's gonna provide. You know, because so if he wants the global population to be around 10 billion or whatever, I mean, he won't let it. If he actively wills the Earth's population to be 10 billion or whatever, he won't let it, you know, exceed that or whatever. But I mean, to say that, you know, we're in danger of, you know, I mean, you know, maybe by the time, you know, Earth is about to be reach critical mass, we figure out how to terraform Mars with the terraform bomb or whatever. However, sci-fi typically terraforms planets these days.
Well,
Yeah, but whatever. My point being is that.
All right, let's get
So
back on. Let's get back
What
on
happened?
Just cut that
Let's-
out, Charles, later.
Let's get back on the rails here and get back to the topic at hand, which I think was population control. I think the only way to solve the Irish protest issue would be to take all of these, I believe they're calling them immigrants or refugees, and sending them back to their.
Victor, be very careful of what you say next.
Or sorry, Charles. I'm so sorry. Charles.
I have a radical solution.
Will you forgive
to the
me?
problem.
What is your solution, Will?
It's quite
God.
simple. We this is gonna be hard to say. We build more houses.
Okay, no,
Favorite
that's
idea.
that's what. No,
If
this
you're
is
homeless, just
honestly a
buy a
very
house.
brain dead take. Yeah, this is okay.
It's
That's
like,
a very
that's like telling
very
a
brain
homeless
dead.
person.
Because
That's like telling a
I
poor
just said
More
that.
houses. Raise the
get a
supply.
job.
Cost of housing goes down. It's
no, that's not.
That is
Oh
a stupid
no.
take.
Not how
I mean, you
Will.
can't just build more.
I love the fact that we were talking about population control and immediately somebody mentions Klaus Schwab. It's like it rhymes perfectly.
That was a different thing. That was a different thing. And I was not referring to you about in that. That was a different thing. I apologize. I was not talking about that when I mentioned you.
So,
I'm sorry.
Just build more houses. You know what England is doing right now? They're doing that, and guess what? It's not helping because also they're inviting it was 1 million immigrants last year that entered the UK. Literally 1 million.
They're not keeping up with the house building.
But
of course,
okay, but you can see the problem.
Just build faster.
No, that's not how the thought works.
Great solution.
But no, okay, let me start from the very beginning because I actually pay attention to British politics quite a bit. Yeah, I know. Call me cringe, but I pay attention to it because I don't know, our regime that we have over us likes to act internationally, so we got to kind of you kind of have to pay attention to things.
So American politics isn't interesting enough for you?
American politics is boring. Have you ever heard PMs arguing? Or wait, MPs, not PMs. It's absolutely hilarious because the British Parliament, their parliamentary rule, allows them to call each other morons in the House of Commons.
I love that. I love that part.
William, have you heard of Indian Parliament or whatever it is?
Filipino Parliament's pretty good too.
You mean Indian
No,
Parliament?
in one
Taiwan's
Parliament session in the 1980s, they were actually throwing chairs and stuff at each other.
You know, the funniest part about watching the Indian Parliament is because there are so many languages in India, most of the Parliament defaults to their general second language, which is English, which is very funny in my opinion. Their nation finally got free of the British Empire, and what do they speak in their government proceedings? English.
Epic.
So,
it's so epic.
Let us.
Keith Woods.
Okay, let's go on topic. What were we talking about again?
We were talking about Ireland and the housing crisis in air quotes. So Keith Woods recently made a video. He's an Irish right-winger YouTuber, and he makes very well articulated videos. He's very well spoken. But he did a video recently on Ireland 5 days ago on the reason why essentially Ireland is being betrayed by their own politicians. All the Irish, they're receiving tens of thousands to several tens of thousands. I don't know if it's quite in the hundreds of thousands yet, but he expects that of immigrants from the third world. And Ireland already before was dealing with a housing crisis, and the politicians are still going to import more. They still deal with unemployment, but the Irish government is going to import more of these third worlders, even though they have problems at home. And that's because, quite frankly, Irish politicians don't care about the Irish people.
Yet another country where the politicians don't care about their people.
Well, that's
Imagine
literally the
that.
entire Western world right now. England is also dealing with that right now of literally importing 1 million people last year.
All right, before we talk about, okay, so we're going to talk about Iran and the World Cup in one fell swoop because some of this stuff is related.
May I be the main speaker for the World Cup because I know a little bit about soccer.
You too, Humbo. Thank you very much. But let us discuss the Iranian protest. The Iranians are protesting their regime by flying a flag without the symbol in the middle that represents the Republic of Iran. Somebody from the U.S. Soccer Federation Twitter account tweeted in a preview tweet the Iranian flag without the symbol in it as a means of standing with the protesters. The Iranian national team has also taken some limited steps to stand with the protesters, including but not limited to not singing their national anthem before their games when their national anthem is played. Now, the Iranian media caused a storm about U.S. soccer's mistake, and the Iranian media grilled the players and coach of the U.S. national soccer team in the pregame press conference about this.
My question is, why do we care?
Why do we care?
Because we need to know whether or not the Iranian regime will be replaced by Republic or restores the Shah. That'd be nice. More Shah.
I mean, I don't know if that's actually really possible at this point because Iran, I mean, it's kind of like the same thing in China. It's like it's bloated by Western media how much actual protesters are out right now, which tends to be on the more lighter end of things. So it's kind of
I've seen some pretty hectic footage come out of Iran as of late. And they talk about executing 15,000 protesters, so obviously they're getting numbers somewhere.
Yeah, but it's still like in comparison to like.
Are you sure you're not an Iranian agent?
The Iranian Revolution was like hundreds of thousands to the streets, not just like a few hundreds. So it's like actual regime changing numbers. There's not really any, like, there's not enough out in force essentially.
I kind of agree with Darth here. It's been very, especially recently with all over the world, it's been large promises, larger and larger promises with smaller and smaller returns, like the so-called red wave that we went over a few episodes ago.
Right.
That was disappointing.
So let us now I will say that this World Cup story has a very happy ending. We beat Iran 1-0 to advance to the round of 16, where we will take on Holland tomorrow as of the time of this recording.
May I interject, please?
Please.
Thank you. So the match against the Dutch is probably I'm not trying to blackbill anyone, but we're probably not going to do well. They have Depay, they have De Ligt, they have Van Dijk, they have a good manager who's sadly retiring after the World Cup. We have some tough opposition, and I like Pulisic. I have very big hopes for him. He's a patriot, and he sacrifices for his country, especially when it was the game against Iran when he scored despite getting knocked down. I'm done.
Oh,
Are they American? Is the question? Because we're going to win.
The joke of a soccer player gets touched on the shoulder and he collapses to the ground.
No.
Oh, what was the thing I was gonna make a joke. I gotta find it now. I wrote this down like hours ago.
All right.
Go ahead, I'll find it.
Okay. While you look for that, if there are no objections, how about we talk to Vicent about the big thing he was working on?
That'd be great.
Yeah, go for it, Vince.
Well, I was a little bit surprised when you told me that you wanted me to go show and talk about this because it's not directly related to the topic of ideological monarchism. It is in particular about the systems of the early modern Holy Roman Empire, and I do have to specify early modern
May
Holy Roman
I
Empire.
interject?
Yes, of course.
What's with the mic change?
He's on his phone. Let's not make fun of him.
Okay, yeah, I have a
Well,
crap mic.
I probably do have a problem with my setting. I get this kind of feedback all the time. It's something that my PC does automatically. So I think I can actually fix it. Let's see. This one, I think. Okay.
So
well,
All right. So, better or not, or the same?
yeah, good. It's better.
It's
Okay.
way better.
I think I've got microphones either on this computer or attached to the headphones or something. I don't know what it is. Not a huge tech guy, which is why I like to study the 18th century. So,
What are you,
Understandable.
right?
well, anyway, so systems of the Holy Roman Empire, the early modern Holy Roman Empire. I specify that because the Treaty of Westphalia, I make the case in my thesis, is during the early modern era the primary governing document of the Holy Roman Empire. There are so many rules in place about the rights of the nobility and their relationship with the emperor that are outlined in the Treaty of Westphalia that it does more to inform the way that country is governed than any of the preceding documents. So the name of my thesis is, let me pull it up here because it's kind of a long name. German Crucible, How the Imperial Systems of the Holy Roman Empire Fostered a Culture of Economic, Political, and Military Innovation During the 18th Century. Now, this probably title doesn't mean anything to the average outsider, but when I started studying the kind of scholarship around the Holy Roman Empire leading up to its dissolution in 1806, I noticed that there was a kind of general attitude that the Holy Roman Empire was a backwards institution, and that the states of the Holy Roman Empire were socially and politically backwards from a perspective of internal and, more prevalently, external or diplomatic politics. And when I refer to a culture of economic, military, and political innovation, what I'm doing is I'm responding to that dominant narrative, right? So things like the rise of Prussia, and this is only one example, have cultural roots in the imperial systems of the HRE. So the example I always give when trying to explain this is one of the sources that I looked at, I think it was called The Sword and the Scepter, begins with the statement, "In the beginning there was Napoleon." And what he's referring to is he's referring to the beginning of the history of German nationalism. But the simple fact of the matter is that, broadly speaking, we can reasonably trace the beginning of German nationalism to earlier dates. One of the dates that I suggest even is the beginning of the Austrian War of Succession, which is 1740 or 1748. But regardless even of these ideological terms, the sort of groundwork for a new political framework in Germany is being set up over the course of the 18th century. And this can be applied to many different states. Bavaria, Saxony, and Prussia, as well as Austria, are the kind of four most prominent examples of ongoing innovation in forming a kind of a new German political culture during the 18th century, and the cornerstone of these political changes are competition. The reason I put this in the context of the early modern era and the Treaty of Westphalia is because the Treaty of Westphalia gives the nobles within the Holy Roman Empire, the leaders of various states, right? So this can mean bishops, margraves, electors, princes, etc. But the leaders of these states, according to the Treaty of Westphalia, have a right to basically unquestioned autonomy. And what that means is that, at least during the early stages of that early modern stage in German development, the extent of the rights of the German princes is untested. They have a right to autonomy. Well, what does that mean? The Treaty of Westphalia doesn't tell us. Add on top of that the fact that the Holy Roman Empire is an aristocratic, elective monarchy. And what you have is a system whereby not only do the German states exist in a space where they can compete, because their right to exist is protected, but their right to influence over aspects of the empire is not. But because of that, but in addition, I should say, because of the elective character of the Holy Roman monarchy, they have incentive to compete with each other in terms of court influence as well as in terms of military power. By the time of the aftermath of the Austrian War of Succession, the Holy Roman Empire is being held together by Austrian military force. The legalistic systems that are supposed to be holding the Holy Roman Empire together have more or less broken down. And the reason that they've broken down is because of Bavaria and Prussia in particular, and especially Bavaria, testing the boundaries of these legal systems because they conflict with each other. If the princely states have a diplomatic right to autonomy, and I describe it as a diplomatic right because it's enshrined in a diplomatic document and it's enforced by diplomatic forces, by outside forces. But they have a diplomatic right to essentially some form of independence. But also the Holy Roman Emperor, as emperor, has a right to govern his nation, if you like, his empire, his confederation, whatever you want to call it. And so what happens is, well, how do we deal with the scenarios in which the interests of the princely states and the emperor do not align? Because the emperor is not allowed to annex or dismantle the territory of the princes, which means his ability to enforce his will, or in one instance, we're referring to Maria Theresa, so her ability in that case, their ability to enforce their will over the princes is limited to such an extent that, well, you can have instances like the interregnum, where Max Albert of Bavaria, Charles Albert, there were like 3 Maximilians that I profile in my thesis, but Charles Albert is the one who becomes Holy Roman Emperor. And the thing is, what the Treaty of Westphalia is eventually leading to in its first stage of development is that instance where Bavaria, I describe them in the context of my thesis as being political innovators, is testing the limits of their rights in the Treaty of Westphalia and using outside forces to gain influence within the Holy Roman Emperor. The Holy Roman Empire. So one of the sources that I used, I believe it was Mac Walker, who writes German Hometowns, describes this system as the balance of power in Europe during the 17th and 18th century being kept using what he described as a German fulcrum. Since the Treaty of Westphalia allows the German states to form their own alliances with outside powers, then what they're doing, sort of by nature, sort of by almost the momentum of politics, what we have is states aligning themselves with those larger countries that they believe are the most likely to advance their interests. And so the way that creates a kind of a balance of power is because what was that? First crack the question after. Okay, yeah. And of course, none of this is planned. All of this is improvised on my part. But I'll give the example of Bavaria aligning itself with France. Bavaria does this because they have an incentive to try and gain influence within the Holy Roman Empire. They are at the time geographically the largest state in the Holy Roman Empire, and they have a considerable degree of influence through family ties to the other nations. And so they can align with the reason they align with themselves with France during, say, the 9 Years' War is not only because they have an incentive to basically resist Habsburg hegemony, but also because France, being the kind of the outsider in that instance, is the one who's most likely to be able to help them achieve that. France has an incentive to dismantle or, as much as possible, reduce the influence of the Habsburgs and their hold over the Holy Roman Empire, and this is something that the Bavarians have in common with them. And because of the smaller states' ability to do that, and because the Habsburg dynasty never has complete influence over the Holy Roman Empire, there is room for the states to be leveraged by the larger powers. And this creates the German fulcrum that someone is referring to. But it's important to recognize that the German states are not passive actors in this system. They are actively reaching out to other powers and gaining enormous influence from that. Bavaria is probably the best example, but Prussia does this as well. In 1756, they call it the diplomatic revolution of 1756. Prussia becomes an ally with Great Britain, and that's going to contribute greatly to their victory in the 7 Years' War, which I think we all recognize as a turning point in the development of Holy Roman imperial systems. And a lot of the sources that I looked at described it as the beginning of Austro-Prussian dualism. And I think that's a little bit too late, actually, because you could more reasonably attribute it to 1748 and the War of Austrian Succession. But the diplomatic revolution in the 7 Years' War is the period in which that system becomes formalized, in which it becomes clear to the rest of Europe that Prussia is an equal to Austria in the diplomatic field within the context of the Holy Roman Empire, or Germany, if we want to refer to it that way. I believe I could probably go into more depth. I mean, the thesis itself is 80 pages long, but I believe that there were some other people who wanted to interject, and I do kind of want to know where you are in with regard to comprehension and what sort of your takeaways are.
Well, I just wanted to ask before Darth speaks: do you have a link to this thesis so I can put it in the description?
He put it in a conference text tag a long time ago, back towards the I believe end of October.
Okay, well, if you don't mind, I'll put that in the description so people who want to read through it can read through that.
Yeah, I think that's probably fine.
Okay,
it's technically unpublished as of yet. I recently got feedback from the graduate department, and the edits that they requested were not to the content of the paper. They were to minor formatting errors, misplaced commas, things like that. Misplaced commas in citations. So the reason I bring that up is only to say that when this thing gets published, it should be functionally and in terms of content, identical to what I'm describing and what you most likely will be posting.
Okay,
So-
now Darth can talk.
So
Wait,
I
So I
real
can
quick question. After you get your master's degree, are you going to go for your doctorate?
I considered it very briefly, but I just don't think it's in the budget.
Yeah, with Bavaria that I just wanted to mention, a reason why also that the House of Wittelsbach and the House of Habsburg had so much rivalry, is because Bavaria, well, the Wittelsbach, they had an ancestral claim, I forget exactly through who, over the Tyrol, or the the little tiny strip of Austria between like Bavaria and Italy. And in fact, the Tyrol was even given to Bavaria by Napoleon for like a short period of time because of that ancestral claim, and because Bavaria became it always was a natural French ally, and then under the Bonapartes, it became a French ally again. In fact, that also happened under Napoleon III, where Ludwig II tried to prevent the Franco-Prussian War by appealing to Napoleon III, but Napoleon III kind of had his arm strung because it was still a constitutional monarchy, and the Parliament actually wanted war with Prussia and France.
Not to
French
interrupt you.
politics is wonderful.
Not to interrupt you, Darth, but I also remember a note from the Napoleonic Wars that the Tyrol also had one of the largest insurgency movements against Napoleon.
Yes, it did. And that's a reason why that eventually Napoleon I stripped Tyrol from Bavaria and gave it back to Austria, was because essentially Bavaria couldn't govern it because a multitude of administrative reasons, and the fact that there's a lot of Habsburg loyalists in the Tyrol. So,
Well,
and
I
will say that's all well and good, but for the most part, it has close to nothing to do with my thesis, because the thing is, when I talk about Bavaria within its context of the Holy Roman Empire, I'm talking about something a little bit larger than the Tyrol. I say, for example, that I do not believe Charles Albert had the Tyrol in mind when he proclaimed himself Holy Roman Emperor, knowing that he would be backed by France.
yeah, I'm just saying like that's like a reason why the Wittelsbach and the Habsburgs had like a rivalry, was typically over the Tyrol and over
I think the Tyrol is something that could be used as a flashpoint for that rivalry. But the simple fact of the matter is that the natural state or the natural nature of the rivalry between these two factions has everything to do with sort of the potential for political influence here. They were the largest states in the Holy Roman Empire, and it wasn't clear in the aftermath of the Treaty of Westphalia whether or not it was possible for somebody other than a Habsburg to achieve domain over the entire thing. So I think we're dealing with kind of natural ambition, so to speak.
and also the
Tyrol
Wittelsbach.
is just territory that can be used as leverage in that broader political equation.
Is there anything of value actually in the Tyrol?
Mountain range.
I mean,
it's a
population
pretty
Yeah.
strategic.
It's beautiful land, which I know the Wittelsbach tend to be some of the most unpragmatic of all the households in the German-speaking world, where they honestly prefer beauty over like practicality. That's a typical of many Bavarian / Wittelsbach monarchs.
Well, they do have a reputation for a considerable dedication to the arts. I believe they might even have an artistic movement, but don't quote me on that because I don't remember what it's called.
Yes, actually, the current Duke in Bavaria, Franz, collects modern art, and his brother Max is on the board of the Modern Art Museum in Munich.
So Franz, by the way, is Duke of Bavaria. Max is Duke in Bavaria.
Thank you for that correction.
Yeah, I'm
I'm curious what the difference in distinction is. Forgive me.
So a Duke in, it's not a territorial claim, but you are a duke within a territory. Like say, Frederick II of Prussia, aka Frederick the Great, his title was initially King in Prussia because of the Holy Roman Empire's Byzantine laws dating back. You couldn't have a king within the Holy Roman Empire, so he made his kingdom.
Except if you're Bohemia, because for some reason they got that privilege.
Yeah, that was like the one few exemptions, but
well, and
yeah,
quite notably, the King of Bohemia was always the Holy Roman Emperor, as long as the Holy Roman Emperor was a Habsburg. And so the idea that you could have a king of Bohemia has everything to do with the Habsburgs trying to assert a kind of domain over the Holy Roman Empire, in the sense that our state is the highest state. It has the supreme titles, so to speak. And so the king in Prussia's title was given away as part of the Pragmatic Sanction of 1701. It was just basically a way that it was one way for the Holy Roman Emperor at the time to extract troops from Prussia. The idea being that if Prussia gave a certain number of soldiers to, or contributed a certain number of soldiers to the army of the Holy Roman Empire, they would get something in exchange. And this is something that goes back, that this is a tradition that dates back even to the 30 Years' War, because once again, the Dukes of Bavaria, at the time I believe it was Duke Maximilian III, I'm not sure, but I might be second. Contributed a large degree of a large amount of money to the imperial army to suppress the Bohemian uprising at the beginning of the 30 Years' War, and in exchange was given domain over the Palatinate, a territory which at the time also had an elector office. So
yes.
The reason Bavaria became an elector is because they were willing to exchange certain favors with the Austrian Habsburgs. And so there is a motif here, because when the Prussians get the title of king, they're doing it in exchange for certain favors. And this idea that the empire, in order to function, needs to give away favors, which it does most of the time, is one of the reasons why there's a gradual erosion of power in the Holy Roman Empire that will be partially reversed after the Austrian War of Succession. Because after the Austrian War of Succession, the Holy Roman Emperor isn't asking favors of anybody anymore. They're using Austria as a power base to assert control over the Holy Roman Empire, whereas before, they were still trying to control the Holy Roman Empire through a kind of quasi-direct rule, which wasn't working, because the only way they could enforce this was through the doling out of favors. There was a realignment that happens in the aftermath of the Austrian War of Succession, and one which is highly positive for the Habsburg emperors. It's kind of strange to think of the systems of the Holy Roman Empire as getting stronger after the Austrian War of Succession, but I'm willing to rule that or I'm willing to suggest that in a couple of ways they actually did.
Good. Well, we seem to have some dead air here. Thank you very much for discussing this. This has been a very enlightening discussion. I hope I'm not stepping on anyone's toes here.
Well, I mean, this is the kind of stuff I like to learn about. But without having actually read the 89-page thesis, I mean,
I plan to read it. It looks great.
Yeah, I do. Because I do love me some Holy Roman Reich, but
95-page thesis.
No, not that one. Well, it wasn't. Luther's thing wasn't 95 pages. It was just.
Well, it was 95 theses. Which
Yeah,
means
95 theses. Yeah, so I mean, if he managed to stretch it out to 95 whole pages, he probably had to use a pretty large print. But
yeah, well, that indeed. Two things that I'll say before kind of wrap
Imagine
this
if
up, which is
teleportation failed because nobody wanted to read Luther's 95-page thesis. Like all the peasants in, I can't remember, it was Württemberg, wasn't it?
I think so, yeah.
It was Württemberg. Okay.
He wrote them in, but he wrote them in Latin.
Took a look at this massive paper and basically said too long, didn't read, and walked away.
The good ending.
It's actually too long, didn't read. It was, I can't read Latin.
You're killing
Wait, so
the joke.
who actually did read it when he slammed it on the door?
The other, like...
Too long, bubonic plague.
well,
No,
and when the 95 Theses were originally written, they weren't intended for the general public. They were intended for the church to reform.
All right.
But of course, since they were rejected as heresy, it ended up becoming a breakaway movement. But anyway, I will tell you two things that I think are kind of important to offer as a conclusion. One of the things is that one of the members of my thesis team asked me to address the concept that Martin Luther can be described as the first German nationalist. This is in a very esoteric sense, but it has to do with his promotion of the German vernacular and the ways in which his Protestant movement would turn the Holy Roman Empire into a fractious system in which individual states, not the least of which being Prussia, that would eventually form the modern German state, had more space to maneuver politically. I offered as an alternative the idea that Charles Albert of Bavaria, otherwise Charles the Seventh, I believe, of the Holy Roman Empire, Charles the Seventh, is perhaps a much better candidate for the first German nationalist, because when Charles Albert laid claim to domain over the Holy Roman Empire, he also laid claim to Habsburg crown territory within the borders of the Holy Roman Empire, which means that he claimed Austria and Bohemia, but did not claim Hungary, Croatia, etc., etc. So functionally, Charles's proclamations separated Germany from its larger multi-ethnic Habsburg domain and had the potential to transform Germany into a much more cohesive body, because if these claims had been recognized, or if the Bavarian faction had won the Austrian War of Succession, then that would mean by extension that Bavaria controlled an absolute majority of electoral seats in the Holy Roman Empire, and it would not be possible to contest their office as emperor, unlike the Austrians, whose office we do see is contestable. So we had the potential to see a more cohesive and more German state during that period, and I think that makes him the first German nationalist. But my thesis isn't about who the first German nationalist is. It's about revising the narrative that the systems of the Holy Roman Empire were backwards. Because, in fact, there is an enormous amount of political maneuvering that's going on here. It's a different kind of political maneuvering, but it's economic innovation. Prussia developing new economic systems to finance the only standing army other than the Austrian army in the Holy Roman Empire that is internally financed. So there's economic innovation. There's political innovation in the form of Bavaria's interactions with the outside world, and there's a little bit of social innovation as well. And the fact that it takes a different form is academic, and I mean that in the sense that it's relatively arbitrary. And when we get to the 19th century and we look at what we sometimes think of as the shocking and meteoric rise of Germany, what we're missing is the context, the larger context, that the reason Germany emerges as such a powerful force in the 19th century is because the individual parts of what would become the German Empire have been innovating and becoming more efficient for 2 centuries at that point. And they've been working within a system that is more restricting, which means essentially that they have to try harder. And that's what essentially I'm trying to get across, right? There's innovation here. It's just not as easy to recognize.
Fascinating.
It's been a very fascinating discussion, Vincent. Thank you.
Vincent, where will you post this thesis?
It's
I
already
just
been
posted it in the
posted
conference chat.
Yeah, it was posted there a couple of days ago, maybe a couple of weeks now. Looks like it was reposted, and I was led to believe that it's possibly also going to be in the description of the video. Yeah.
Yeah. This is
Somebody
the kind of
in
stuff
it.
that I really need to. I don't know. I just need to crack in and read some primary sources on something because I love history so much, but I haven't actually done anything like that, and I really should. But because I feel so I feel intelligent right now.
Well, now you know how it feels for certain listeners of the podcast when you and Darth go on those metaphysical discussions.
You mean mostly me?
Oh, I plan to join in.
Yeah,
on
mostly
those.
Darth. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I am. You
It
think
would be
for
very
someone? I don't know. You think for someone who spent most of his life like just studying history and stuff, you think that I'd be a lot better at it than I am, and philosophy and whatnot. You know, where did I go so wrong? Anyways,
just lock Darth outstanding. That would be a fun episode.
I just been here.
Well, you were kind of cut off. What'd you say?
I said lock Charles, Darth, and Vincent in a room and see who comes out standing. That would be an episode.
I'm going down first. I'm gonna be I'll have a.
Well, thank you, Vincent, for that excellent
Yes, that was
discussion.
wonderful. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
someone
you know,
who-
the place is all that.
That was 10 times better than anything my dumb brain can make up.
And that's why he's getting the master's degree.
Yeah.
Yes, as someone who wants to do history in college, you've
What?
made me feel
Sorry,
wonderfully
apologies.
inadequate. As someone who's planning to do history in college, you've made me feel woefully inadequate for starting, and I love it.
Trust me.
Well, I'll also
history
tell
in
you that
college
I
isn't
am
as
at my
much as-
university a university writing center consultant, and that means that I get the writing that first year college students. I get to see the writing that first year college students are producing, and it is some of the worst writing I've ever seen. You can't do worse.
Yes. I mean, people say college is hard. Like my university, it's like exactly the same thing. And I also went to North Dakota State before I went to this online university called American Military University. And yeah, I back that statement completely. Like most people in their undergraduates, let's just say writing skills is not there for most of them, and the teacher's like, okay, you got the points through that I wanted you to answer in your essay, so here you go, here's your grade.
Well, and you have to remember that this year is kind of anomalic because the first year students who are coming into college, for all intents and purposes, did not have a junior or senior year of high school. I'm talking, of course, about because of the asynchronous courses that high schools tried to hold during the closures caused by COVID. And so I think the quality we're seeing is even worse than it otherwise should be. I can't prove that, but honestly, we're dealing with sophomore of high school level of writing performance here, and that's really not surprising because they didn't have a junior or senior year.
Dude, this is stuff I expect from Kraut. This is excellent. This
You got
thesis is
me,
excellent.
Vincent. You got me concerned about my book I'm writing personally on the side about how bad my writing might actually be now.
Oh, agreed. I'm 100%.
Don't
After
worry,
listening to Vincent, I'm like,
Hey,
No,
I
I
had
was
to
lost the
read-
entire time.
I just read this book by Dave Rubin of all people. You know that.
I'm
that
literally
awful-
reading the Walking Dead comics right now.
Oi, oi,
But-
Bert's turn to
but-
speak.
But I read this book called "Don't Burn This Country Down" by Dave Rubin. It was genuinely one of the worst written books ever, and this was written by a 45-year-old man who literally had as his profession journalism for like part of his life.
I mean,
And
he was from the Young Turks. What'd you expect?
yeah,
Well, journalism is all
know.
quackery. I'll tell you that right now. I know people who are going to school for journalism, and it's not that their writing is bad; it's that their sources, their scholarship, their research is some of the worst I've ever seen.
The scholarship,
not
the scholarship and research. I assume the bad stuff is basically they're only using one-sided sources. Is that
Well, there is a certain amount of political bias, if that's what you're referring to. It's in the culture of university, and it's in the culture of journalism, and also, and the result of that, the consequence of that, is that there's an enormous amount of pressure that students of journalism experience, a certain pressure to conform that stifles their creativity and also stifles their ability to do a kind of a research in depth. It's this idea that ideology provides them with a shortcut. That there are certain buzzwords that are more likely to, or just as likely to get them the grade as good research will. And also, people who enter the journalism field, especially in college, kind of already have a an objective of influencing the public in an ideological direction. It's why a lot of them want to be journalists. So they come in with the idea that they're going to impose ideas upon other people. So there is a lot of research, a lot of thinking that's being stifled by political thought. And it's one of the reasons why I joined the Monarchists in the first place, to bring a lot of this stuff full circle, which is I see the ways that political ideology stifle creative thinking, and also general authentic intellectualism. And if they weren't being raised and taught within a partisan space, then I think we would probably get a much higher quality of journalism. And as a matter of fact, Napoleon III writes about, and then some of his supporters write about this during the era of the Second French Empire. They write about specifically that condition of the quality of journalism being influenced negatively by partisanism.
Yeah, I kind of saw this. I had to take a political science class to fill one of my general credits, and I had to. Our last project, our final project for the class was writing what is our utopia, and of course, I wrote that like honestly, the Holy Roman Empire was like my utopian form of government. So I had to explain like what the Ghibelline ideal was, and it was like a 12,000 word essay, but I had to write a 12,000 word essay to get the same grade as a guy who wrote a 1,000 word essay, essentially advocating for like America but libertarian, because it was essentially he was writing that he wanted like the status quo, just different form of liberalism, and I wanted a complete break with liberalism. And that's just kind of college. You're going to have that ideological conformity to the system, to the educational regime. And if you go against that, you have to work like several times harder than other students that conform to it.
Yeah, and I don't blame the students themselves. They're they're already under the influence of that pressure, and we don't know what their ideas would be if they weren't under that pressure. So they're not the ones to blame, so to speak. And monarchism presents, I think, one potential solution to that sort of general intellectual. I hesitate to say decline because it seems like a stagnation is the better word, I think.
Yes, and we think, at least all of us do, at least I hope all of us do on this podcast, that monarchism will encourage intellectual growth, not just in this country, but in.
I mean, some of the greatest minds came out of, let's just say, countries where people didn't have to focus on politics. Like, say, the German Empire sprouted. Like, a lot of people don't like Friedrich Nietzsche, especially in the reactionary sphere, but Friedrich Nietzsche, Oswald Spengler, he wrote most of his Decline of the West during the German Empire's time. And then there was Sigmund Freud. He came from Austria-Hungary. I have my gripes with Freud, but I won't doubt that he was still a brilliant mind. And so on. Dostoevsky, Tolstoy, to mention some Russians. Yeah, like, and then what was the best French philosopher since they got rid of the monarchy? Tick, 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 I'm waiting.
And to add on to that, any of the writers or philosophers of the Pax Romana.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, essentially all the greatest minds came from monarchies, or at least non-democratic forms of government. Like Plato and Aristotle wrote their works after Athenian democracy was already like seen for the sham that it was, and was, I think it was like an oligarchy around the time that Plato and Aristotle wrote. So anti-democratic. And of course, like say Saint Paul, he wrote also in the time of the Caesars. So yeah, just kind of reinforces itself over and over again.
Well, in fairness, he also had divine inspiration on his side, so.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
A small bit about, God.
The thing about Saint Paul, though, like he studied in, I think it was Corinth, the ancient Greek philosophies. So like he had like that intellectual background even before he was divinely inspired. So yeah, in fact, that's why Saint Paul was like, I think out of all the apostles, the only citizen of Rome.
Yeah, which is why he was, according to tradition, beheaded and not crucified upside down like St. Peter was.
Yeah. But St. Peter like specifically requested the upside down, like they were gonna crucify him just normal. But he was like, I'm unworthy to be crucified the same way Christ was.
And that, children, is why the head of the Catholic Church is situated in Rome.
Yes.
Exactly.
Well, Charles, is there anything else you would like to discuss today?
I have nothing else to say.
Well, let's go down the list and see if we're all in agreement that we're fun to wrap up. So, Humbo already said it. Bob,
What?
are you good?
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Trad.
Yep, I'm good.
Josiah. Oh, sorry, Joshua. Why did I say Josiah? I just went full on, like 15.
I have been summoned.
Are you good?
I am excited for the post podcast VC call. It's going to be very fun.
Oh yeah.
Not for me because I'm not gonna partake. I gotta edit this one.
I'm just way too busy getting into The Walking Dead
say,
comics. I'm currently on
I am
issue
excited.
11.
I am excited. We're gonna. Someone's gonna have to tag everyone. We're gonna have a fun time in E4.
Charles will yell at us.
Yeah, I'm gonna
Swearing.
yell at you, and then I'm gonna edit this monstrosity for the.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Honestly, I
How
deserve
many?
it.
How many do I have? I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I have 8. I have 8 things I had to remove.
Mhm.
Thank
Do
you
we
for
deserve it?
complicating
Probably.
my life. No, it's fine. It's definitely that.
Well, I
Dude,
hope you,
what
I
do you
hope
Wait,
you
is the
enjoyed
podcast
this-
over?
No,
Yeah,
no, it's not
no.
over. I haven't
Yeah.
done the outro yet. So
Yeah.
Vincent, are you good
I-
to wrap up? I'm just making sure everyone's okay to wrap
I
up.
hope
Yeah, I've said
I
everything
hope
I
you guys
I
enjoyed
wanted
this
to say, I think.
podcast because this is probably going to be the last time Limbo shows up.
What?
Oh yeah.
Hey, that's no, please. I want to stay on the podcast. Ooh, woo.
No swearing again.
The band hammer. No. Okay, no.
It's
Okay,
fine.
Say the
Fine.
N word. Say it.
No.
Absolutely
Say
not.
it. Say it.
Say what?
Dude, I'm already on the chopping block with Charles. I want to make it worse.
Half of you people are at my chopping block because you guys can't keep your mouth shut. Anyway,
No, Charles isn't going to be the destruction of this podcast. I am.
look,
I'll beat him to it.
I have censored more. I don't know if I had a book burning for every time I had to edit something out of this
Whoa.
podcast, I would have
Whoa.
single-handedly been responsible.
Edit that out.
for
Edit
global
your
warming.
force. Will, tell him to edit that out.
Number 8.
No, I'm
Number
not gonna.
8.
Will he doesn't have Hit Film Express.
Well,
Charles is
boss.
gonna
Not
run around,
sponsored.
snap us with the whip.
Not
Yeah.
sponsored.
What's your
Okay.
opinion on gay people? No.
We're not starting that. We are
No,
not
no,
doing
no,
that.
no, no.
Not today.
I'm joking.
Not today.
I mean, I could just pull out the catechism, but okay. Anyways,
All right.
Oh.
All right. I am for ending the podcast. I am for.
No, hold on. Yeah, we already established this. Romanoff, are you good to wrap up?
Very
Vicent's
good.
back. Okay. Anyways, Darth, I assume you have nothing further to
Just the
say. We can end my
requiem.
misery. Okay, then Will, you're good for the wrapping up.
Yeah, I'm good for it.
All right, so I can create my second to last timestamp.
Yep.
Not too bad, actually. Okay, so if you would like to read Vincent's thesis, you can find that in the description below. But if you would like to join us live and see why I am probably going to go bald because of all the hair pulling out I have to do by age 30, you can
I will make you go. I will make you shave your mustache. I will make you shave your facial hair too.
I mean, I don't. I mean, my profile picture shows me with like mutton chops. I don't have mutton chops. My profile picture is something from like this dead
You just
thing
you
over
just
in-
made the joke more complicated. I was saying I was going to make you pull out more hair.
Next step.
Okay.
cancer.
Oh well, he's gonna
Either
do that
way,
anyway.
I mean, I think I had my hair from my mother's side of the family, so I probably wouldn't go
Off
bald
topic.
with my dad. Anyways, we're getting way on track with the
Next step,
outro.
stage 4 leukemia.
Okay,
Alright,
everyone,
continue.
Everyone
the
shut up.
outro is my time to shine. Okay? The outro is when I am the unequivocal supreme leader of the podcast, like I really am, even though it's a madhouse. But I'm a very bad supreme leader. Which is
Mainly
why
because you aren't supreme
this is
leader.
how you know I'm a peasant, because I can't control a rabble of 8 people.
What do you mean? I'm the aristocrat here.
What did you say, Darth? You're very quiet.
I'm the aristocrat here.
Yes, I know. But unfortunately, rules are rules, and I am supreme leader. But if you would like to see my pain live, you can join us. Link in the description below. If you would like to enjoy Twitter while it lasts, however long it's going to be around for, you can join us on Twitter. Link in the description below. If you want Neocon Twitter, okay, whatever. Gab, link in the description below. I'm sorry for not being active there. We also have a
Go follow
website.
the National League Twitter account.
We have go especially
Everyone?
go to the Discord because we have. I'm not going to say it because I don't want to attract more
Humbo,
attention.
shut up.
Okay.
Once
Shut
again,
up.
this is how you know I'm a peasant, because I can't control a rabble of 8 people.
Just don't invite him back.
I just had to do a shameless plug.
You can't do a shameless plug. I have the authority. I have the ability to change the podcast rules at whim. If I wanted to, I could write a rule that says
the freedom of
Joshua
choice.
Singfield can only say 4 words
Sheffield,
a minute
you-
every 2 minutes. I could.
Sheffield,
I
bunch.
have the power. Ask the boss. Ask Joden, our
No,
beloved
you
chancellor.
no.
I can do
First
it.
off,
Shush.
you said Sheffield incorrectly.
Sheffield United.
Yeah. Okay, continue.
Anyone
Tom.
else? Anyone else
Nope,
want
nope,
to challenge
no,
me? Bob? There you go. That's what I like. I like people falling in line. Everyone else? Anyone else? This is the longest outro we've done. Okay, there we go. This is how you handle people. Okay. We also have other things. We have a website. You can go there. You can peruse it. It's like a website. You can like do things. You can click buttons. So if you want to do that, you can do that. And then now I guess it is time to conclude in prayer, which will be in Our Father, and for Darth's
Great uncle.
great uncle, a requiem. So, man, that's the longest outro we've done. Okay. So, in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Ghost, Amen. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen. Eternal rest grant unto him, O Lord, and let the perpetual light shine upon him. May his soul and all the souls of the faithful departed, through the mercy of God, rest in peace. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Ghost. Amen. So until next week, may God bless you, and may God bless the United States of America.